record. Welcome to the Regen Room. Today we're speaking with Jane Linke, who is the CEO and founder of Seaside Scavenge. She's better known as AJ, and some of you might know that I used to work with Seaside Scavenge. I've been working with Seaside Scavenge for the last few years now, so I'm stoked to have AJ on the Regen Room to have a chat about all things community and taking care of our oceans. How are you, AJ?
Hey Josh, I'm good. Lovely to chat.
Yeah, awesome. No, thanks for coming on. Hey, I want to get stuck into it. I know last year we were doing a lot of events together up and down the east coast of Australia, and I know that you really love community spirit and gathering communities for a cause. So I wanted to just ask you, why is it so important for you that we regenerate the community spirit?
Definitely. Community spirit for me is really about feeling connected, whether it's like being online or like physical connection in the workplace. I find that when people feel more connected and cared for by the people around them, they become active players and contributors to the community and kind of keep that cycle going and ultimately bring more people into the community and care for them. Sorry, if you can hear all the kookaburras in the background.
I actually love the kookaburras on the farm at the moment. We've got one, like, I guess he's a community kookaburra actually. He always comes and just sits on the post while we're working, and it's just such a nice little totem that they're there and they're always laughing. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's so lovely to have them around. They're all hanging out in their community right now, having a good old laugh.
Having a bit of a yarn, do you reckon?
Yeah.
Cool.
So yes, like community, just going back to community spirit, I find that when, we're in a community, we're kind of paying attention more to what the people's needs are around us and their emotions. And it's kind of moving the focus beyond ourselves to like the people around us and realizing how interdependent we are on like all living and non-living beings on the planet. And when there's a really strong interdependence or community spirit, I find people are more conscious about the planet and the environment that surrounds them. So for me, like community spirit's really about moving beyond the self to the other and then caring collectively for the planet and the environment that we're in. Yeah,
that's beautiful. I recall the feeling that I got during those events last year. I think we ran like 20, and every event you're in a different community and you have a different feeling, and it's not like, a thought or anything else. It's just that feeling of sharing something with a bunch of other people. It's really beautiful, especially when you're working towards the same kind of cause, being cleaning up the environment. It's just such a great thing to work towards as a group and as a collective. So yeah, that's awesome. I love that perspective. I know this year, obviously, we haven't done that many events so far with Corona, but last year was the first Spring into Scavenge program, and now it's in its second year. And just before this chat started, you were telling me you had this 48 applicants. So that's massive. Can you tell us how you've managed to encourage community members to become leaders and by holding their own events through the Spring into Scavenge program?
Yeah, so the Spring into Scavenge is a program that we developed together last year to basically open source the Scavenge framework to communities across Australia, and we even had some international ones last year too, because the Scavenge is a really good opportunity to bring community together, and it's a really fun framework for people in all sorts of communities to actually adopt. So it has the event coordination component, which does require like a little bit of, organization and leadership. So it's a really cool way to actually just start to build those skills in yourself. Like for me, when I started the Scavenge, it was just going to be a one-off event that I was running while I was at uni, and I'd never had any event coordination experience, but through doing the event, I kind of like found some musicians and people who had run events who could help me learn it. And then now I've been doing it for 5 years, and I've really developed some strong organizational, people management, like community spirit, collaboration opportunities, and it's an opportunity for everyone. Like everyone can go through that same process, and I saw you go through it too last year through running the Scavenge.
Yeah.
So I just really see that it's a really cool framework to inspire people to hone those skills in themselves, and like to learn just like a few little ways to kind of create change in their community and bring out components within themselves to really facilitate that change locally.
Yeah, I know, it's amazing. When I joined Seaside Scavenge, it was because I had this passion to clean up the environment. And Seaside Scavenge, the actual core event itself is around beach cleanups or waterway cleanups, where you're removing litter from the environment, and that's the core of it. But what I found through last year and what you've just mentioned is that through mobilizing community like that for a shared purpose, you gain so many other skills around leadership, and that's where the real magic is. I'm starting to see, and I know that you see that as well. So epic work setting all those up, and I can't wait to see how they go this year. I'm sure so much mobilization, so much people power at the moment. It's just really great to see.
Yeah, I think especially after COVID, or during COVID, where we are feeling really disconnected, hopefully we'll be able to come out of it in spring, and the weather will start to get warmer, and we'll be able to have more people together, and it'll be a really important time to reconnect with like the people in our community that we're physically passing in the street every day, and that we may live nearby, and then also connecting with the environment that we're in, and noticing what's changed over the last 6 months, and really mobilizing to not just clean it up, but to actively become players in making the world a better place through the decisions that we can make.
For sure, yeah, contributing to that like healthy ecosystem from a human being perspective. Hey, on that as well, I know you're a waste-free and conscious living guru. So I was wondering if you could just share a few of your tips for waste-free living with us.
Yeah, so I think my favorite thing about my favorite recipe is deodorant. So I think it was like the first time I went up to run a scavenge in Byron, I met Caitlin Weatherstone from Wild Search, and we did she ran a plastic-free July workshop, and since then I've just been using bicarb, arrowroot, and deodorant and coconut oil with a few drops of essential oils in it as a deodorant, and it's so great. It's super easy to make, and it's really cheap, and I love it. It really works for me.
Did you say
that's a really good one. Yeah, arrowroot or tapioca powder. It's kind of like a fine flour, like a cornstarch.
Yeah.
So the recipe is 1/4 cup of bicarb, 1/4 cup of arrowroot, 1/3 cup of hardened coconut oil, and then just chuck some essential oils like whatever you like, rose or geranium or peppermint, and then you just put it in a bowl and kind of mix it into a paste, and then I just keep it in a jar. Yeah. And it usually lasts it lasts as long as you need it. Try and keep it cool. But that's my top tip. Yeah. Something that I also have been that I also like making is yogurt. So that's a really simple, I just have like a big thermos. It's an easy yo thing. And I make it with coconut milk. And I do have a base starter that I just reuse over, which is yogurt base with the probiotics in it. But that's really good because it means I don't have to use heaps of plastic containers, and I really love yogurt. Yeah. And the other thing that I thought would be really cool just to share with you guys is how I recycle my cans and my little pieces of metal. So a lot of the little things like bottle caps, they are recyclable because they're metal, but when they go to the resource recovery centre, they actually fall through the grid on the conveyor belt, which because they're too small, so they don't usually get collected. So one thing that I do is I just keep a tin on my sink, and I put all my pieces of like foil that are not big enough. Unless a foil piece is the size of your fist or larger, it usually doesn't get recycled. And aluminium is actually like the one product that can be recycled infinitely. So we really want to make sure that we get this stuff recycled. So I just put them all in a tin, and then when I fill this up, I like close the lid and push the kind of that cap in, and then it keeps it closed. So then when I put this in the recycling bin, they're all in there and they get recycled. So that's just a really good way that makes sure that all that little stuff gets recycled. Yeah.
That's a,
so they're my 3 top tips.
That's a really helpful tip, because I know a lot of people get confused with recycling. For instance, soft plastic doesn't go in the recycling bin. Like you said, the foils, they need to be scrunched up or else they can't go in properly. So yeah, and that you know, the wider Australian community might not know, but the problem that we have with recycling is that the people aren't recycling properly, and that's not their fault necessarily, but it's just because there's no education. So yeah, that's awesome that you're teaching that, and I know the Seaside Scavenge events are awesome to learn more about that as well.
Yeah, because like, I mean, rubbish is boring. Like, you know, unless you're working in it every day, you're really not going to be investing a huge amount of time researching what items do and don't go in. And like, to everyone's credit, you know, that should be something that's delivered top down from government or industry, that's like just teaching us really simply how to separate our waste, because contamination is what ruins, or what, like, you know, makes recycling really complicated. So yeah, I mean, especially through the Scavenge at the moment, we've got this waste buster hashtag where we're trying to just share like these really helpful hints on how to actually separate stuff effectively. So if you want to check that out, you can head to our Instagram or check it out.
Definitely. I'll make sure to tag you guys in this Regen Room episode. But moving on to the next one, I know we've had a lot of time to learn, and you and me have had personal chats lately about some of the books that we're reading and whatnot. So I just wanted to ask you, what's something that you've been learning from during lockdown that you might like to share with us?
I know it's really cliche, but the one thing that I've really started to grasp is just like taking it slow. Obviously, like the last 2 months have been unprecedented for so many people, and just not having plans. And for me, that's definitely hit hard, but in a good way. You know, with the Scavenge, I'm really busy, and living in the city, it is a busy lifestyle, and you just tend to like book in your evenings and book in every moment of your day for stuff, and not having that expectation or maybe even pressure has really allowed me to now start to just do things in a flow when I actually feel like doing them. So I'm making a really conscious effort, even as the restrictions start to lift now, and, you know, we can make more plans to see people, trying to be more conscious about just making plans only a few days or like a maximum of a week in advance, rather than planning out like a month in advance, and just like going with what I actually feel like at the time. So it's just really been about like going slow, which is something that everyone's probably been noticing a lot as well. But yeah, just consciously trying to be in the moment, because, you know, that's what it's all about. It's really
the present moment can be so generous as well. You know, when you do have that opportunity to slow down, it's amazing the thoughts that come through, and you're just like, oh wow, I was too busy to think about that before, but this is just like really inspirational stuff that's coming to me when I'm just, you know, doing not as much as I was before. I know it's hard though when you're living in Sydney. It's a high paced lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah, the cities are busy. But exactly like you said, when you've got space to just do things and time to do things, you open up the world, or your world, to all these other opportunities that you didn't realize were there necessarily.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Cool. And then one last one, I got a big question for you. If you could give any piece of advice to humanity at the moment, what would that be?
Well, during COVID, I read We Are the Weather by Jonathan Safran, and the byline of that book is "Saving the planet starts with breakfast." which in hindsight seems quite obvious, but I didn't realize how much of a huge contributor the agricultural industry was with emissions to the planet. And the way he framed it, so number one, read that book. Really fun and interesting book to read, the way he frames it, but just about the connection with the food that we're eating. I think if everyone, with the means had the possibility to investigate where our food is coming from, and even just being more conscious when we're eating food, because it's something that we all do probably at least 3 times a day, like everyone who's probably listening to this call, not unfortunately everyone globally, but it's something we do so regularly that if we connected with what we were putting into our bodies and understood where it was coming from, whether it was grown in the season that it was meant to, and just the process that it had traveled to get to our plates, we could really start to make some more conscientious decisions around what we're buying. I mean, obviously that can be a luxury that not as many of us have, but I think if we can all start to connect with the food and just think about, trying to eat plant-based 2 meals of the day, and then, have one meal that incorporates animal products, but, really thinking about what we are eating, all the ingredients, where they've come from, how they've grown, how much water they've needed, like who's planted them and cut them, and all this to get it to us. Like, it's a huge process that I don't even value, and I'm just starting to really uncover it when I eat. So yeah, just if everyone could start to connect with what we're eating and how we're buying it, and all of the process that goes into making our food, I think we could really start to see to have some bigger conversations around agriculture food.
I love the idea of doing that at breakfast as well, because it's the start of the day and you're really setting yourself up for an inspirational day if you're consciously choosing what you're eating and you're acknowledging that it's from the earth and all the rest of it. It's just a great way to set your day up.
Yeah, and all the people involved with getting it to you, especially living in the city, like, how far does food travel to get to us? Where does it go? Like, it perplexes me that, we just eat all this stuff that we have no idea where it's grown.
Yeah, it comes back to gratitude as well. So I've been eating a lot of fresh produce out here lately. I feel very grateful that I've had that opportunity. And there's nothing better than just having a big bowl of like organic veggies right in front of you, and you can just go, oh yeah, this is good stuff. You just know it's good stuff.
Yeah, and just having I've just got a few herbs that I grow, and just so stoked when I cut the parsley and put it in, even though every other ingredient I don't know where it's come from yet.
Yeah.
Just starting to build up a few ingredients that I do know where they've come from, and the effort that's gone in making them. It's super valuable, and makes you grateful, so grateful.
Yeah, and kind of just taking ownership of the supply chain. As you as a human, you have to eat. You need to eat from somewhere. It needs to come in. Where's the supply coming from? You take ownership of that supply chain, and we can all change the world if we do that. But yeah. No, thank you so much, AJ. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's always great to connect. I hope you're doing well down there in Sydney, or in Coaldale, I believe now. And I really am looking forward to seeing what comes out of the Spring into Scavenge program this year.
Thanks, Josh. So nice to be in the regen room, and always lovely to see you.
Cheers.